going to move my mic so it's a little closer to me and hope that you can hear me and see me. I have about a 20-minute delay between when I start filming and when you start responding, so I always have to kind of wait and make sure it's all working before we actually get started. So hi everybody. First, before we start, I want to show you this gorgeous photograph. This is a photo of the Northern Lights taken by Darcy Shawcheck, and he's a local photographer. I haven't had a chance to actually meet him in person, but we've connected over on Facebook, and I love following his Facebook page because his photos of our area are just absolutely beautiful. I've got some questions coming in and some greetings, and we're going to go over those in just a second. So oh, good. And then I can see that you can hear and see me. So that's great. I'm going to address some of your questions right now, and then we're going to move over to my painting surface. First of all, some of you are asking about my blog post and talking about the blog post that I shared today. It's titled Not Perfect Yet. And in it, I'm talking about this culture that we have created via social media where we present usually an idealized view of our lives through photos and status messages and so forth. And I think sometimes we've normalized this idea that their lives are all perfect all the time. And in watercolor and in life, we know perfection isn't really what we live with. And I've never painted a perfect painting. I'm always responding and reacting to what's happening on the paper, and a lot of times that means working with my mistakes. And so as a watercolor painter, I've had to make peace with the fact that my paintings aren't going to be perfect all the time, and that perfection should be not what I'm aspiring to, but more just engaging with what is happening on the paper, loving what I'm doing, and learning to take my mistakes and turn them into learning opportunities, find something beautiful in them, and then just keep going, not give up. So I think if that encourages you, you can check out my blog on my website at angelafehr.com. I'm often trying to share some encouraging thoughts as well as watercolor information. So we're going to move over to the painting surface at first in just a moment, but I want to tell you why and what we're painting today. I'm working on a course. I have a course on my website called Tree Clinic where we just focus on painting trees. I have another one focused on painting florals. And then I have some larger courses like landscapes and floral courses that are broader in scope. But every now and then it helps to just focus on one subject. And so I want to work on a course all about painting skies. And we know that with skies, there's a huge variety and so many different ways of painting skies, different times of day and different seasons. And so we're going to explore that in this new course. And one thing that I wanted to paint was, I wanted to do a lesson on painting a rainbow. And I was struggling with it. I didn't have a great reference photo, which didn't help. But I was really struggling with how would I paint a rainbow in watercolor to look beautiful and like my style and so forth. And I'm not there yet, so I didn't want to include that a lesson about painting rainbows when I really don't have it figured out. But something we do have up here in the north is Northern Lights, Aurora Borealis. And so we're going to paint those because they are absolutely perfect to be painted in watercolor. But before I create that lesson for my sky clinic, I need to figure out the best way of painting Northern Lights. And I think there's going to be a lot of different options. I don't think there's just one way to paint Northern Lights, just like there's no one way to paint any subject. And so today I wanted to play with some different ideas and just see what develops as I try out some of my ideas and see what's going to work the best for what I have in mind. So you get to watch as I do that. I'm going to talk through my thoughts and my process and show you some of the ways I might interpret Northern Lights. And then what I use in the online lesson for the Sky Clinic course, well, you'll just have to wait and see. So we're going to move over to my painting surface. Hang around because I will answer your questions after the painting has been completed. And I have some other things I want to show you as well. I'm just going to switch my camera, and that always takes a second. And I'm going to just turn my computer so I can still see the screen. And we're painting again in my studio. which I love because everything's right nearby and right at my fingertips. It just makes it so much easier to paint. So we know with the Northern Lights, let's flash back to that photo one more time and be inspired by it. And Darcy very kindly agreed to let me use his photograph. One thing I will mention is when you're working with reference materials, make sure you have permission. If you're using a photo that you didn't take yourself, make sure you have the permission of the owner to paint from it. It's just good practice, and it will be really good for your reputation as an artist. Photographers are artists too. So this particular photo, and often the Northern Lights, if you haven't experienced them, you need to come up and visit me. I will be painting in a workshop here in July in my home studio. You're welcome to check that out, again, on my website at angelafehr.com. Often with the Northern Lights, you need to use a time-lapse photography to be able to get the effect. And in this case, we have beautiful, the sky looks kind of violet, and then we have beautiful white, kind of greenish and yellow in the sky. And often in our area, I see the Northern Lights as white or green. And they actually really do dance in the sky and move and flow, and they're just absolutely phenomenal. So we're going to start with some of that green, and I think I'm going to use turquoise, phthalo turquoise, just to get a little bit of color on my paper. And I want to use that dancing motion, that little zigzag that sometimes they do. And then I'm going to add a little yellow to that. I think this is Indian yellow. And that Indian yellow, isn't it awesome? It just swooshes on the paper. It's made by Core, and Core watercolors often have that little swoosh effect, which I think will be really nice for painting watercolor. And I want to keep my values fairly light at this stage. Now the sky, we know, is going to be dark everywhere the Northern Lights are not. So let's grab some Payne's Gray and see if we can just place it on our painting right now. So, and I'm not quite juicy enough to really get some good saturation, so I just need to pick up a little more water with my brush and try to get that down. Payne's Gray is a really nice, rich blue-gray. And I love using it for a dark when I don't want to mix my own darks. Now the deal here is I'm painting my light and my dark colors at the same time. So that means there's a chance that my dark might flow into my lighter colors and start to take over. So I want to watch for that. But the one thing that I get out of this is I keep my softness. Because everything's being painted at the same time when everything's wet, all these colors are going to flow together and give that lovely soft effect that I want to have in my Northern Lights. And I'm going to add some purple too because it was really pretty in the photo. And maybe a little purple on this side as well. Oh, that's beautiful. That's dioxazine violet. And I think the one I'm using is made by Winsor & Newton actually. And it's a gorgeous, rich, kind of royal purple. Now you can see I've started to lose, I don't have a lot of Northern Lights happening here. So we're going to try some things to add some more in. So I think the lesson here so far that we're learning is that with the Northern Lights, anytime you're painting that lighter color and then wanting to paint the dark around it, paint your light color larger than you think you're going to need, because I'm losing some of those lights as the darker color flows in. I just put a little roll of masking tape so that under my board so that I have a little bit of a tilt so my color flows downward. Now remember that gorgeous whoosh that yellow had? I'm going to mix a little of my yellow and turquoise to get that green, and I'm going to try to push that in a little bit. Oh, I want it to be brighter than that. Let's add more yellow. And I'm going to shake it in. And that gives me actually almost a feeling of stars, which is kind of neat. I apologize for the noise. I'm sharing my space today with the worker down in the shop. And that would be the air compressor. I'm going to try sprinkling a little phthalo turquoise onto my paper. And anytime I'm adding paint to my paper, I'm running a risk because I know that the colors I add are going to adding more paint to the paper adds more darker value to the paper as well. So let's try something different. I have here a bottle of gum arabic, and I'm going to squirt a little bit of that into a clean well in my palette and see if I can use it to help me keep some lighter space in my painting. And this is an experimental kind of thing. I'm not 100% sure it's going to work, but I've used gum arabic other times to create some flow and movement in my painting. With the damp brush, I'm just going to grab it. It's kind of syrupy, like gelatin, so I'm just going to add a little water to thin it. And then when I touch it to my painting, what happens is the gum arabic pushes against the pigment and it should flow, create some flow and movement. So hopefully I can get some of my white back at this stage. And I'm going to use water as well. Adding water to my painting is going to move some of that color. I want to create, now that's creating blooms. I've added this combination of gum arabic and water. And as things move and flow, some of that pigment's going to start to get washed down, and I'm tilting my board quite a bit at this stage. Loving the mixture of colors that I'm getting here. And what I'm thinking I'm going to do, I'm just trying to evaluate here, is I want to keep my values light in my dancing Northern Lights area. Wherever that color is dancing across the page, I want to keep that color nice and pale. One reason I'm blotting right now at the bottom of my paper is to prevent that excess moisture that flows downward from pushing back up and creating a back run. And I'm loving to, I like the movement I'm seeing in here. You can see there's a little swirly swoosh of color, mostly in a yellow tones. As this dries, I'm going to have the opportunity to go in and build up my darks a little darker, which I think will make my lights stand out even more. So we're going to just pause and let that do its thing. The gum arabic didn't push the color quite as much as I thought it would, but I think I might get a better result if I mix it with a puddle of paint in my palette. So if I mix it with this little green puddle that I have over here in the corner, I should be able to touch it in here and see it flow. And actually I kind of like shaking my brush and letting some droplets fall on the paper. And then once those droplets have fallen, I can choose to follow that little path of droplets and create some beautiful fingers of dancing light. So I'm having a lot of fun with this. But I'm starting to get to the stage where I can see the color soaking in. It's not as shiny moist anymore. So adding more pigment at this stage means I start to lose the flow that was there before. Everything's absorbed, and so it's going to get a little bit blotchy. So this is a good place to stop putting paint on the paper. I'm going to take a quick look at your questions, and then I want to show you another technique, another way of getting your first layer, getting started with painting Northern Lights. Thank you, Maxine. Sorry, I've just long pauses. I take a look at your chat here, and it's not really a great time for me to look at your questions because I do want to keep painting. But thank you, Maxine, for commenting, reminding everyone to thumbs up on the video. That's always helpful. The more people who see this, the easier it is for me to continue making classes and teaching watercolor. Okay, so I'm going to just set this aside. It needs to dry before I do anything else with it. So you're not going to see this one again today. But I do have this little guy that I painted before we started. And what I did here was I only focused on getting, I'm just turning it to see which angles I like the best. I think this way. I was only focused on putting in the colors that I thought I might see dancing in the sky when the Northern Lights are especially vibrant. So this is just Northern Lights colors here, and I haven't painted my darks. I wanted to have two different ways of approaching this so I could compare. And so now if I've got my Northern Lights colors down, the next stage would be to put those darks in. So again, I'm going to turn to my Payne's Gray. And if you don't have Payne's Gray, you can try indigo. Or you can try to mix a rich, deep indigo. Mixing a little dioxazine violet into my Payne's Gray is going to give me a really beautiful, beautiful hue. So we'll give that a try. Now, if you know anything about watercolor, you know that when my paint is dry, my paper is dry, that means I'm going to have this brush stroke I place is going to be very crisp. And so I don't really want to have a really crisp line in my sky, because it's not what we see in the sky when the northern lights are coming. We see a lot of softness, and we don't want to have it looking kind of phony. So you might consider, one way of approaching that would be to moisten the whole paper first, which is basically what happened when we did the other version. But I personally like to paint with a lot of juicy pigment and then soften the edges. So I'm just going to take a damp brush at this stage, and I'm going to soften what I've already painted, and I'm going to pull it toward the edge because I want to keep a nice space here. So I get to place that strong dark pigment, but then I also get to soften it. And I'm just looking for anywhere I'm seeing edges. And then adding water to soften those edges away. And now the funny thing is as soon as I do that with that damp brush and I've softened those dark edges, I still have a really faint edge over here, so I have to soften again. And you kind of keep having to go in with clear water until you don't see any line between pigment and that first layer at all. So I've moved a lot of color and added a lot of moisture at this stage. And then I might go in with my brush, and I'm going to try to not move the color, just dot the color in, and see if I can get some northern light effects here. And I'm just experimenting. So if I have the attitude that I'm experimenting and I'm not really sure what's going to work, that means I get to feel free to try this, try different things, and ask what if. And I always think it's a good idea to chase those what ifs. What if I tried this technique? And I have another idea I'm going to try in just a minute. So I'm putting on a dark stroke, and then I'm softening it away. And again, we want to leave a lot of space for our light colors. And I'm probably just going to keep adding water in the middle to wash away any pigment that flows down from this corner and wants to push and cloud my brilliant colors there. Again, with a little pure Payne's Gray. Whenever you're painting wet and wet with a lot of water, you have to need to remember that because you're using so much water, your colors tend to dry lighter. So if I really want a rich, dark contrast in my sky, I'm probably going to have to do it in more than one layer. Heather's asked if she can see what the first painting is looking like at the end of the video. We definitely will. I'm actually a little nervous that it's so far away from me right now, because often when I have a wet wash with a lot of color in it, I'm going to keep an eye on it during those early stages of the drying process. Okay, right now I'm going to start to slow the flowing process in the middle as well by doing some swiping with my paper towel. And as I swipe with my paper towel, I'm going to lift some color and soften some color as well. So I'm lifting some of those dark colors. I managed to find a little bead of pure phthalo turquoise there as well, and that's made a streak, but I kind of like it, so I'm going to leave it. And I think the swiping works really well because the northern lights often just feel like they're almost an illusion at first when you're looking for them. Often in the night when we're driving home from somewhere where I look into the sky and I'm looking for northern lights. And if the moon is bright or there's a lot of ambient light from the nearby town or something, the clouds will sometimes get reflections of the light on the land, and and I'll almost think it's northern lights and it's not. So I have to watch and see if those glowing shapes are actually moving through the. And as soon as I see them kind of swirling up and down, I know I'm seeing northern lights. And so they're really beautiful that way. And so you want there to be a lot of softness, because that subtlety is really what makes them so magical. And I'm loving what's happening in this wash here. Doing it in 2 layers gave me the opportunity to control the lighter colors a lot more before I put my darker colors on. Now I have a little something I want to use as well, and I just want to try it and see if it's going to work in my painting. So I'm going to clean another spot on my palette. I never clean my palette unless I absolutely have to, because all of those little colors all the puddles of color that you mix in your palette make such great neutrals for painting nature. And if they're already pre-mixed, that saves me a lot of time when I'm painting. I have this little jar of aqua bronze. It's made by Schmincke. And what it is it's a metallic pigment. And so I'm going to add a little bit of that into my palette. Just a little dot with the end of my brush. Oh, maybe a little more than that. This is one of those, I've been using Brusho pigment lately, and those pigment crystals, it's a little bit, goes such a long way. Whereas with the Schmincke aqua bronzes, I feel like I generally don't mix enough the first time. And I'm going to take a toothbrush. I always say my toothbrush and feel like I'm going to clean my teeth with it later. And so I'm using a toothbrush, and I'm just going to spray a little of that aqua bronze into the dark areas. And I'm thinking it's going to look a little bit like stars and give my painting a little shimmer. And a watercolor purist might tell you that's kind of gimmicky, but I don't care. If it's pretty, I'm going to do it. And I love the way the aqua bronzes just dissolve and make that sparkle happen. It's really quite beautiful. I'm going to pull in a little bit closer and hope you can see that. Absolutely gorgeous, subtle color. And it's actually a little darker and richer than what you're seeing on your screen. I think it's so pretty. And I don't want to do anything else with this. I'm really enjoying it. So I'm going to let it dry and let those colors continue to do their magic. Why? I think the reason I like this second technique better is because when I painted that first layer and I just used hues of turquoise, yellow, violet, and a little bit of green gold, when I just used those hues, when I painted over it with my darker colors, that first layer of color is still glowing through. And the transparency of watercolor gives us that ability to create these complex layers of color. So this Payne's gray we placed isn't just Payne's gray. What you're seeing is also the underpainting, those beautiful rich colors that we placed in the very first wash. And so we aren't going to see that nearly as much with the first version that we did, which I'm going to bring over right now. And it is still drying. And it's kind of funny because the paper did buckle quite a bit. So I have a very moist area here. And what I would have done differently is, if I'd been keeping an eye on it as it started to dry, I would have tilted it just a little bit more to allow this moisture to move down the page just a little bit better. And I wouldn't have such a big buckle right there. So I'm going to tilt it quite a bit right now. It's tilted about 3 inches on one end of the board as it dries, and that will help things to dry a little bit more evenly. I would want to continue building this one up too. I love this dancing streak of violet over on this side. I've got some beautiful movement in this painting that I was able to create, I think, with a little more control than my other versions. So both techniques really have their own pluses and minuses, their own pros and cons. And this one, after it's dry, I'm going to want to build up my darks, layering more Payne's gray in the darker areas, and softening again where the northern lights are showing through. So it starts to become a very similar technique to what we used in the second version. And I'm going to be exploring this more because there's always, it seems like when I try something new, there's always another what if I want to chase and try out. So once this has dried, I'll build up some darks on that in much the same way as I did with the second version. And then I'll decide from there how I want to approach my Aurora Borealis lesson in my upcoming Sky Clinic, which I'm going to be showing you some different techniques, even beyond what I have here today. I'm going to turn to your questions right now and hope that I can answer them to your satisfaction. It's just going to take me a second to get set back up. There we go. Okay, so I have some questions about video buffering issues. I'm sorry, Joy, that you're having trouble with frequent buffering. I will see if I can adjust my settings for next time. Yes, absolutely. That's really frustrating for you, and I'm sorry. I am recording this lesson with my laptop so that I can upload a clearer version after we're done here. Feel free to share any questions that you have, and hoping you're seeing the benefits to either one. I'm using, okay, you guys are talking about ox gall and gum arabic, and yeah, I pulled them both out and I should have tried them both to compare them. And for some reason I see you're asking about, okay, you're asking about ox gall and gum arabic, and what happened to me today was I pulled out both bottles and I grabbed the gum arabic instead of the ox gall, which I should have used the ox gall, and you're absolutely right. So I will fool around with that probably in my own time. And yeah, because yeah, I don't always get it right. I have noticed that Core watercolors, which are a fairly new brand of watercolor, they're made by Golden. They have an amazing dispersion in their watercolors. I can always count on my Core colors as having that whoosh when you put them on a wet wash, which is very fun to use, and will move all kinds of pigments. I'm gonna just move down here. Donna asked why I chose a pre-mixed Payne's Gray over mixing my own. I like to buy pre-mixed pigments a lot of the time just to save me time. That's one benefit. Payne's Gray is kind of a cheater color because it is so like a black without being black, and so a lot of times I will mix my own darks, but on the other hand, it's really nice to have something that you can just quickly grab. And a lot of times, because I'm working so wet and wet, I like to see how colors react with each other on the paper. And so most of the time I might use straight Payne's Gray from my palette, but as it goes on my paper, where everything's very wet, I get this whole new color as my colors mix together. And just asking further questions. And really, there are some people who are very purist about using pure pigment rather than pre-mixed pigments. And one thing I love Daniel Smith pigment, which often is pre-mixed pigments. And I don't have a great, I don't have a great answer for you, except I just love color and I love to play with it. And so if there's a pretty color in a tube that I can try, it might be something that I would have never thought of mixing on my own. Pat asks how I would use neutral tint. I haven't actually used neutral tint, and it's one of those colors that it's kind of on my list of things to order at some point. Wayne's asked if I would turn my work by painting over and wet the back to remove or lessen the effect of the buckling. Really with that paper, I think it will, as it dries, it's going to flatten out, so I probably won't have to worry too much about the buckling, Wayne. It's going to smooth out as it dries on its own. If it were to stay really quite buckled and I was ready to frame it, then I usually will iron my paper just on a low heat setting with light steam in between 2 sheets of paper towel. There's questions. Oh, and Maxine asks about my top, and I did want to go there. This top that I'm wearing is from my Shop Vita line, which is a collection of clothing, scarves and tops and bags that feature my artwork. And I do have a link in the description to this video. I'm going to show you the statement bag as well. This is a leather and canvas tote. It's a zippered tote. This is my painting Fanciful Feathers. And the tote is beautifully made. It's a heavy canvas with a leather base and straps. The zipper has the leather toggle. It's lined with a nice sturdy brown canvas lining, and then there's a zippered pocket inside as well. I love these bags, and they're nice and roomy. They hold lots of stuff, and I use this one every week. Further questions? I'm going to do a little research because I kind of screwed up on the gum arabic. I should have used ox gall, and that's my own mistake. I haven't used it in a while, so that's why I went with the wrong one. And so I'm gonna do a little research and play around because there is lots of information about different watercolor mediums on the internet. So don't just listen to what I have to say about the different mediums. Try them out for yourself, research them, see what's going to work for your style of painting. Do take some time just to read the description below my video. I really try to spend a little time adding helpful resource links there, things that are going to help you find materials, know what I've used today, and have connections to the different things you need to know. The clothing line is made by Vida, V-I-D-A, and the link to my own collection is in the description for this video here on YouTube. And you can also take a look at my website, angelafehr.com, and you'll see images of my scarves, which are absolutely beautiful. They're a silk cashmere blend. The tops are really nice, but I find I use the scarves and the bags just a little bit more. That's my own style and preference. I am working on this new course, Sky Clinic. I'm so excited to be allowed to use this beautiful photos by Darcy Shawcheck. I encourage you to check him out on Facebook. I'm actually going to link up his Facebook page here in the description as well. I don't think I remembered to do it before we started today. I do have more, there's so much more I want to share. I'm hoping I'll have time to do another video this week. Heather's mentioned she'd like to see it, and we'll see if we get that far. One thing I love about Shop Vita is that they're they spend a lot of time caring for their staff. They have products made in India, Pakistan. They do literacy programs, and the quality is really quite beautiful. Once upon a time, when I first started painting, the only thing you could get your art put on were t-shirts, and now we have all kinds of different products, but I really haven't seen anything with the caliber of quality that Vita has. So I really like their products, and even though they do seem to take a little bit longer because everything's custom made as you order it by real people. So I have a few more questions. Sandy asks if I can ever demo with carnations. Those would be fun to paint. That's something I haven't done in a very long time. Amy comments she's been trying Daniel Smith paint and loves it. They do have beautiful vibrancy. Some of the colors are very mineral pigments, so they have different qualities where you actually feel like you're working with a pigment and not just a chemical, which sometimes you feel like you're a long way from the original source of whatever it is that made that pigment, if that makes sense. Thank you to everyone who came today to watch. I'm going to wrap this up, and I just appreciate your time, taking time out of your day to be here. And I'm excited to be working towards this new course. And I love sharing ideas and showing you that I don't know how to paint everything the first time either. I like to work out my ideas, do some different sketches, and see what I feel the most confident is going to give me the best result. So thank you for joining me today. I will see you again next week. Follow me on Facebook. Check out my website at angelafehr.com. And make sure you're subscribed to this channel so you never miss a video lesson. I do sometimes post surprise lessons later on during the week. So have a great day. Thank you, Joe, for moderating. And we'll see you all next week. Feel free to join my online Facebook group as well, Angela Fehr Watercolor Workshop. And I love connecting with you there as well. So have a great day.